Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and I am the voice and the astrologer behind the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, the web page, Nonconformist Conscience. You can find me on social media, and you can also find me on my own YouTube channel. I know that this gets put on the EA Zoom channels. So this week, I have a few things that I want to talk about leading up to this Libra new moon solar eclipse happening on Saturday. So the first thing is that on the 10th, the asteroid Lilith, if you want to look it up, it's asteroid 1181. And I just gave a talk about Lilith with Helena Garcia over last weekend, the EA online conference. But if you weren't there for that, let me talk just a little bit about what the asteroid Lilith represents, because she's very active during this week and also during the eclipse. So Lilith the asteroid represents the function of where we can get to our original root, our original feminine root. This is not just for women or people who identify as women. This is also for men as well. But it's the most undistorted, most natural sense of our soul, and our soul being Pluto. So if I were looking at this in a natal chart, someone's Lilith funnels into Pluto, whereas Pluto's the soul, what it's trying to actualize. Lilith is the principle of our most natural essence, the undistorted, wild, and free essence of who we are. If you think about the Lilith myth with Adam and Eve, Lilith was Adam's first consort before Eve came along, but she refused to lie beneath Adam and rebelled against submitting to him, which is really poetic for not submitting to the patriarchy. And because she refused to lay beneath him as someone who was unequal, she was able to remain whole into herself. So it's this principle of remaining whole into ourself, our most wild and free nature, our natural essence. During a transit, this is really representative of whereas a society, a community, a collective, we can activate this principle on a collective level. And Lilith on the 10th was at 24 degrees Libra, conjunct that lunar south node. During the eclipse, she will be at 26 degrees. So she will still be squaring Pluto. Lilith in Libra is really about where this principle, if you think of Lilith as a protector or a guardian, is protecting the natural essence of how, as a society, as a collective, as humanity, on a natural level, we are about giving, sharing, and including. And where she safeguards this principle for humanity itself. Lilith conjunct the south node, which she still will be technically during the solar eclipse, is really about having these areas on a collective level come up for us to where we can see distortions of where we've gone against our nature, where we've gone against the natural principle and law of giving, sharing, and including, and how we can step up into its Libra objectively and into society. Libra is where we can find our place within the collective and stand as an equal. And so the South Node conjunct Lilith is exposing dynamics of where on a collective level we have strayed away and where we are safeguarding this principle, and she is guarding and protecting it and really trying to get people to come together in regards of equality and viewing others as an equal, no matter what society has conditioned us to think. That would be Pluto and Capricorn squaring Lilith. So there's this need to, as a society, look at these areas of where we have strayed away from this dynamic, where we have strayed away from this natural principle. Saturn and Pisces is the ruler of Pluto and Capricorn, where we need to look at man-made laws that have created disillusionment and crisis, and to dissolve this, so a restructuring within the collective, society, government, humanity can have a rebirth, right? That would be more indicative of whenever Saturn moves into the sign of Aries. It's go time. It's the thrust of the rebirth process. But right now, we're really having to look at what structures on a societal level are needing to dissolve that are not in alignment with giving, sharing, and inclusion. And I'm being pretty general about this, but trying to not be overgeneralizing when we're looking at this on a collective level and trying to really simplify this. So if we think about what is happening in the world right now, which can be very controversial for me as an astrologer to say this, but I have Pluto and Scorpio in the 6th house. I'm going to talk about this. I also have a stellium of Capricorn in my 8th house. I am going to talk about this. Lilith on this South Node, while everything is going down right now, is really about how do we get back to this natural root on a collective level? How do we do our personal work so that way it can create a ripple effect within society? How can we reestablish giving, sharing, and including? How can we break down old societal structures that are impeding on this natural principle? Where in your life can you be a natural authority and step outside of the status quo to be a part of helping bring balance back into society, into the collective? What is your part? Lilith transiting in Libra says, what is your societal role? How can you safeguard and protect this natural function of giving, sharing, and including? Looking at others through the eyes of equality. To me, with Pluto being ruled by Saturn and Pisces, Pisces is about universal truth. It's about timeless principles within nature, within the universe, that never go away. So as we dissolve man-made structures, constructs, what can we do on our own to help the collective? What universal and timeless principles can we remember and regain? What is Lilith trying to say here for each one of us? So if you have a planet at 24, 25, 26 degrees Libra, this is just speaking to Lilith, and it is, you know, in a conjunction with Lilith, or maybe you have a planet at these degrees that Lilith is aspecting. It's really imperative that we all look at this function. We are alive right now and chose to come in at this point in time for a reason. It is, I can say I have been so sad lately with seeing what is going on in the world. And I have talked about this a little bit, and I get flack from some other astrologers. Either they try to put me in a corner, or you know, I've even gotten feedback, is people want to do the whole positivity thing, and I'm just not going to do that right now. And if it gets me flack, it gets me flack, but this is about being in integrity for myself. There are things that each one of us can do as a way to fortify this principle of giving, sharing, and inclusion. And it can make us feel really small or powerless, but when it's all said and done and this life ends and we're doing a review, is this a moment in time that you would reflect on and objectify and feel like, man, I could have done something different? Is it something you're going to carry guilt into another lifetime because you chose not to act on it? That doesn't mean that you have to be on the front lines necessarily. It means that we're just not going to turn a blind eye. You know, Martin Luther King Jr. has a great quote that I'm going to butcher. But it's about being on the right side of history. And I say that, you know, as, what do you stand for? What feels an integrity for you? For me, what I can do is I can talk about this on my social media platform. For me, I can post things around awareness, around what's going on. I think for me, because I live in Oklahoma and no one is really talking about this, although everyone's heard about it, it makes me really sad. And that's what I'm choosing to do right now. I will tell you not to be gloom and doom, but I prefer honesty. And I think that a lot of you guys do too. With the nodes continuing their journey in Libra and Aries, over the next year, a little over a year, we will see more imbalances highlighted within societal structures. Pluto is going to go back into Aquarius, and this is about revolution and rebellion, and it's about the collective, you know, conscious and higher intelligence. And it can also be about revolution. If you look back at the cycles of when Pluto has been in Aquarius and what's gone on, I can let you guys do that research yourself. This is a time where we are going to see people getting together, Aquarius, communities, finding their own tribe, as a way to help create either balance within the world, or they're going to be rebelling against that. But the rebellion is going to happen on some way. Either people are going to stand up and say, I'm tired of this, because the imbalances are going to be so highlighted. And with the sign of Libra, it takes an extreme to counteract an extreme sometimes. That doesn't mean extremism, although that is what we are seeing right now. So it's the distortion of this Libra square Pluto in Capricorn. But as Pluto does this little dance back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius, we are going to see the dissolving of old societal, religious, man-made structures. And Pluto going into Aquarius, the need for objectivity about how to liberate from any type of conditioning that is perpetuating imbalances. We're also looking at things, seeing as Uranus is in Taurus, it's not just what we're seeing go on in Israel, we're also seeing the destruction of the earth, Taurus, land, dealing with the ways in which humanity has used Earth's natural resources and the imbalances that are going to come during this time that will be highlighted, revolving around this. So whatever you can do, whatever really speaks to you on a personal level about what it is that you want to do to make this world a better place. Pluto in Capricorn right now says, be responsible and integral with this. Lilith squaring this says, get back to your natural roots, the undistorted, the natural principle of giving, sharing, and inclusion, not just with others, but with our relationship to Gaia. So I just wanted to speak on this. I know that it sounds heavy. Like I said, I have a lot of Scorpio dynamics. I'm going to go there. The beautiful thing about Venus ruling Lilith and the South Node before the eclipse, and this filters into the eclipse, is Venus and Virgo can really be where we can heal relational dynamics. It can also be where crisis can happen within relationships, but really more than anything, Venus and Virgo wants us to heal. Venus and Virgo wants us to take the necessary practical steps that are laid right before you. Venus is in a mutable sign. Virgo is mutable. So if you're someone who feels like on a personal level right now, like they're feeling analysis paralysis, or I'm not ready yet, or I don't know what I can do, I feel so small, because it can induce this feeling of humility, Virgo. Mutable energy says, as long as you put one foot in front of the other and your intention is pure and it's coming from a good place, it will pull in the polarity of Pisces. The truth will be revealed, and the necessary steps that one can take can be laid out before you. So I wanted to speak to this because you've got to think the next nodal shift that occurs is going to be the South Node in Virgo and the North Node in Pisces. Wherever people have been ignoring or denying the imbalances, whether in your personal life or on a global level, crisis is going to happen. And so we want to keep this in mind, not to scare people, but I'm someone who likes people to just give it to me straight, right? The world isn't always unicorns and butterflies shooting out of our butts. Like, it is, this is it. And we chose to come here right now. So what are the practical steps that each one of us can do? For me right now, it is teaching my kids about giving, sharing, and inclusion. They are Pluto and Capricorn generation kids. I have a 14-year-old and a 6-year-old. It is fostering a relationship with nature so that they see that this is also a relationship where the earth gives so much to us and we should reciprocate to establish equality. I like to share information about what's going on in the world in Oklahoma, even if it bothers people, because I can't sit and not say anything. I've never been like that. I've been someone who's always peeled back the curtain, and it creates alienation, and that's okay with me. That's part of my path. And I'm just fine with that, because that's me being authentic and being in integrity. So it could be different for you, but for whoever is listening, I just want to talk about this because it's real, it's happening. And astrology is something that is reflecting this. It's reflecting what's going on in the world. And every week I talk about more of the astrology through a personal lens for you guys, how it can be impacting you individually in a broader scale. But occasionally I will talk about things on a very collective level, and this is one that I cannot ignore. And I'm going to use my voice. So moving on, this happens on the 10th. I feel like I've given a good rundown about this Lilith squaring Pluto, and Lilith being on this south lunar node. On the 11th, Chiron opposed the sun, which is really interesting, and I want to speak about this because during the eclipse, Mercury is going to oppose Chiron at the same degree that the sun was at whenever it opposed Chiron. So Chiron in Aries, ruled by Mars. At the time of this, Mars was at 29 degrees Libra. Later on in the day, it went into the sign of Scorpio. Chiron in Aries can really have or evoke old experiences through a smell, a sound, a TV show, anything of that hits to the core of where we have been wounded around a lack of self-leadership or our early child development, seeing as it's Aries, it's naturally square to Cancer. Aries is, it's about what were your attachment styles, seeing as there's a opposes Libra. So what in your life is coming up for you and being highlighted where you need to have self-leadership, where you can be interdependent within your relationships and not codependent? This is looking at where we can feel insecure in our relationships for various reasons. This is with this opposition that happened on the 11th. The sun is really illuminating where maybe we didn't feel like we were in a situation where we were viewed as an equal. Maybe we were going into a situation viewing others as an equal, and a wound is evoked of where it's coming up again. Like, oh man, like I'm realizing that I'm really not being viewed the same way I view others. This can be about needing to be a warrior in your life. Where can you still show up for yourself, even though others maybe not be viewing you accurately? Venus and Virgo ruling that sun is speaking to, what do you need to heal? Are you denying something? That can be a function of Virgo. Are you having an experience come back around that feels habitual, that's wanting to be exhausted? And so there needs to be healing of where one feels like they're not connecting with another, and the need to look at the truth of the situation. So later on in the day, Mars, the ruler of Chiron, enters the sign of Scorpio. So if Mars and Libra, it can be a little tough. Mars and any air sign can be a little tough. Think about it. It's fire and air meeting together. It can either blow out or it can ignite, right? So Mars and Libra was where we are having our needs meet the needs of another. It can also be really speaking to where we have abandoned ourselves in situations as a function of survival in the past because our conditioning dynamics growing up. So if there's something around your relationships that's coming up that you have been sitting on the fence about, or which can be a Libra dynamic, or acquiescing to, right? Hoping that it's going to get better, or someone's going to see you for you, or I mean, all of these things. When Mars enters the sign of Scorpio, you can commit to your choice. Mars can be about choice making because it's about our desire. So it's like, what are you really wanting to do in life? What are you desiring? Mars in Scorpio can really get us to the bottom of our roots, like what's going on, the underbelly of our psychological and our emotional dynamics. And it can help us to commit to what it is that we're needing to commit to through the function of how bad we're desiring something. So if you are desiring to have a different type of relationship with your friends, family, this or that, Mars in Scorpio is going to help commit to that path, whatever it may be. So this now gets me to, this one little curl is really bothering me. This now gets me to the eclipse. And this eclipse is happening at 12:54, excuse me, p.m. and Central Standard Time. I always pull up the Greenwich, England chart because that speaks for the collective. I was taught that by Mary Blue, and I was so thankful because it changed my whole perception on how to look at a collective chart. But that way I could utilize the houses and whatnot instead of just the signs. But side note, squirrel brain. This is happening at 12:54 p.m. Central Standard Time. And a solar eclipse is whenever there's a new moon. It's whenever the moon and the sun are conjunct next to the nodes, the lunar nodes. That is when eclipse happens. Whereas a lunar eclipse is whenever a full moon happens next to the nodal axis. So we have a solar eclipse. So this is happening on the south node. So there's this kind of paradox that's happening. On the one hand, it's the south node, so the past, but yet it's a new moon, and then it's an eclipse. So this can speak to old dynamics that are coming up for us to work on them in a brand new way and illuminating the path of what is this way that we can work on this old dynamic to start a new cycle, to transition. It's in the sign of Libra. So we are, again, looking at all types of ways in which we connect with people. If it is on equal terms, this is square Pluto, technically. So I already touched a little bit on global ways that this is showing up. On personal levels, depending on when you're using eclipses, I think that they tend to scare people because they can be karmic endings and karmic beginnings. And oftentimes we do see people die during eclipses. But here's the thing. Eclipses are portals to perpetuate evolutionary growth. And they are most potent when they are within about a 2-degree orb of one of your own natal planets, an aspect or by aspect. So if you have something at this 21-degree mark of Libra, give or take 2 degrees, then you're probably going to feel this. If this is aspecting something in your chart by 1 to 2 degrees, you're probably going to feel this. Even if you have something at 1 degree Scorpio, because of Mars being there and so close to this, something can be coming up for you during this eclipse. And it doesn't necessarily mean life or death. It can actually be more of this Plutonian function of a rebirth, something dying that once was, not necessarily physically, and then a metamorphic state happening for a rebirth, like a phoenix rising out of the ashes dynamic. Okay, so this solar eclipse in Libra can really help all of us to understand where imbalances are occurring in our life in a variety of ways: work, family, lover, friends, you know, all of the above. It's Libra, it's any one-on-one personal relationship or a relationship you have with something. So this also speaks to, seeing as it's a new moon being ruled by Venus and Virgo, part of the pathway to starting a brand new evolutionary cycle with this is re-experiencing or understanding old dynamics, south lunar node, from the past, and bringing new awareness to it as a way to understand what steps we need to take to heal. Venus and Virgo. What is wanting to be exhausted on an emotional and psychological level? You know, technically Venus is sextile Mars and Scorpio. So it's like getting us to the underbelly of where we might be having a habituation surface during this, you know, time period, to really help us understand and have the aha moments of, this is why this keeps happening. And on a soul level, I am not wanting to continue to repeat this in relationships, this relational dynamic. A lot of things around equality can come up, seeing as this is Libra, and Libra is not inherently balanced. It's about learning balance. So it's like this igniting of old experiences of where there wasn't balance or harmony or equality, as a way to recenter, to come back to center, to create that harmonization. And with the sextile between Venus and Mars, we can really get to that underbelly. These are both very analytical signs. Scorpio is going to penetrate and get to the depths and pull back the layers of the onions, you know, of the onion, not onions, sorry. It is about what you're desiring to investigate and get to the bottom of, the why. Venus and Virgo. Virgo is very analytical, but can get a little too self-critical sometimes. So let's not really get into that realm. And remember that good old Maya Angelou quote: you do as best as you can until you know better. And when you know better, you do better. And this can be one of those moments for some, of these aha moments. And so with Saturn and Pisces essentially opposing this Venus and Virgo, and trine Mars in Scorpio, self-forgiveness is a must. Pluto and Capricorn sometimes can induce the feeling of feeling futile, especially square this, you know, eclipse that's happening. And as someone who has a lot of Capricorn and experienced futility, there can be this experience of, and I have a lot of Virgo as well. I'm trying, I'm getting better, things are getting so much better, and inevitably something comes back around and the sense of futility kicks in, because it feels like I have to start all over again. And then the inner critic and the inner judgment can happen. And what I have learned through direct experience, wisdom, and true Capricornian fashion is things are not null and void. In a very Virgo-like way, The value really is in the effort. When you know better, you will do better. And inevitably, our soul journey, especially this can be highlighted right now, seeing as Pluto is in Capricorn, you have a strong Saturn dynamic going on during this eclipse, is self-forgiveness, giving oneself grace, and knowing you can get back up on the horse at any time. What I have found is we will always experience the dynamics that are reflected in our natal chart. And through transit, what will happen is it will ignite this dynamic and we will experience it again, but it is a deeper layer of the onion. And the key is Venus and Virgo to remember you have picked up tools along the way. You aren't going to re-experience this the same way as you did last time if you've been working on it. So each time Mars in Scorpio, a layer of that onion is peeled back, you then have a tool. In true Capricornian fashion, you've been collecting tools in your little Capricorn briefcase to use. So if something's coming up for you right now and you're feeling really inwardly critical and judgmental, and a sense of futility is kicking in, like, what is the point? Why does this always happen? Give yourself grace and reflect, Capricorn, Saturn. Reflect on, what did I learn about this dynamic last time that I can now utilize in the present moment? What tool do I have as a way to remain responsible and in integrity for my emotional maturation process that is going to go on the rest of my life? We aren't done. Life is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And so these feelings can really be coming up right now during this eclipse. Another dynamic that I have seen through clients who are starting to really feel this is there's the exposing of inequality, especially if they were denying it or really weren't seeing clearly in the past because they were wanting to see the potential of the situation or the best of a situation. This can be this Pisces Virgo dynamic that's highlighted in this eclipse transit. And a really interesting way to think about this is that, and it's really simple. It's like, you know, I'm sure all of you know this on some level, but sometimes hearing it in more simple terms just helps. Is that, sorry, my dog was at the door, but it is this: equality can be very difficult when there are power differentiations in relationships. Just think about that. Equality can be very difficult when there are power differentiations in relationships. This is more in the therapeutic field. This is something that we would talk about. So what this is, or what this can look like, is, are you in friendships where you're always the counselor and your friends are coming to you, or vice versa? Are you in a relationship where societal gender constructs and conditioning is really highlighted? I know I've been in those like in the past, and that's been a part of my own evolution, is where these, you know, areas of our life are having a power differential, and we're really not seeing it or equating it to inequality. With work, are you getting frustrated because maybe you're getting paid less than someone who has a lower grade job than you, right? It's a power differential, and inequality is occurring because maybe you're a female working this position and the guy is getting paid more than you. There can be a lot coming up around these kind of masochism areas right now, seeing as this Virgo Pisces is being highlighted during this eclipse that's wanting to emphasize where equality and inequality is happening. So really understanding what are the power differentials in your relationships and how can you come in and view yourself as an equal, or what choice do you need to make? There is, you know, Mercury is conjunct this eclipse. It is in mutual reception with Venus, and Mercury is also opposing that Chiron that the sun had just opposed a few days earlier. So what information are you gathering at this time about these dynamics? And what can you do to take the necessary steps to heal? Do you need to heal? Are you denying the truth of something? Are you being attached to expectations and outcomes? This can all be really highlighted during this time as a way to heal these dynamics. Another thing I've seen come up lately that often isn't talked about with Libra dynamics is, you've got to think the polarity of Libra is Aries. It can be competition, which I love that Brene Brown talks about how competition is underneath the umbrella of envy. And envy is very different than jealousy. And I was thinking about her. I'm a huge Brene Brown fan. I actually got to go to one of her conferences at UT like 14 years ago, whenever she had just came out with the book Daring Greatly. And I love her work. She has a Lilith actually in Scorpio, which is so fitting. But she talks about whenever you name feelings and your emotions, how actually what we name our emotions can perpetuate the feelings, whether it be positive or negative. And so she makes this distinction between envy and jealousy. Mars and Scorpio here, we could be dealing with these dynamics. And then competition, right? Mars is that ruler of this North Node. So competition is a dynamic of envy. Envy is distinctly different than jealousy. Envy is where we can experience a feeling of wishing we had something that we didn't. But it's more of, I think I recall the example that she gave one time was a friend going on a trip, right? And her really wishing that she could have gone on a trip. And that's the feeling of being envious. Jealousy is different because it's dealing with 3 people, whereas envy is usually only dealing with 2. Jealousy is where I feel like you're spending time with this person and it's going to take away from our relationship or the time that we share together. So I have been seeing a lot of dynamics around competition come up lately, which is actually this Libra Aries dynamic of wanting to be viewed as an equal, but wanting to be better than. And really, it's, to me, comes through the natural trine of Libra and Aquarius of wanting to stay unique, but still be viewed as an equal in its most natural expression. And, you know, we have Uranus and Taurus and a Yod with this new moon, solar eclipse. It's in a yod with Neptune and this new moon. So there can be feelings of, can I show up as an equal and still be myself and unique and in alignment with my own values and needs? Or am I experiencing disillusionment by the people around me? And it can be a really good lesson for people to understand that the inner doorway is always open to source, and that we can get our needs met there, and we don't have to get them met by others. Some people just aren't going to do it. They're never going to see you for who you are, and that's just life. I know I've experienced it. So these feelings can be coming up as a way to throw us back in on ourselves, so that way we enter the inner doorway. We can ground in our relationship to ourselves, and we can really listen to our inner voice that is being divinely guided. All of us have this. I know I hear people talk about speaking to spirit and all of this. Every single one of us, no matter what stage of evolution, can access this. When you have a repeating thought in your head that is not self-critical and it is guiding you, you need to leave this person, or you need to start this business, and it continues to come up, that is, you're supposed to be listening to that. That's the inner doorway. And it takes faith. And insecurity can happen, which is another thing that I want to talk about. The feelings of insecurity can really be creeping up right now, especially during this eclipse. This can, it's highlighted with Pluto square this, Uranus, and an inconjunct to this new moon. And I just want to say, and I think I said it the other week, is that insecurity, actually, we're so conditioned to think that it's a bad thing. Security is comes from the known and the familiar. This is a great Jeffrey Wolf Green teaching. Insecurity comes from challenging that. And whenever you're evolving, on some level, you're going to feel insecure. At the very beginning, you are, until you create a new norm. Jumping off the high dive is very scary the first time you do it, you know, and this can be that moment for some. Really needing to listen to the inner voice that is emanating from the depths of our soul as to make the correct choice, a correct judgment call. This would be this Pluto and Capricorn and Mercury and Venus in mutual reception. This is really, insecurity can point to, at the very least, standing on the precipice of evolution, of you're about to do something to set in motion a period of growth. And so if you are having something come up over and over again, that is your inner guidance that's saying you need to do something different at this time, because it's reinstating your own self-worth, your own value, or maybe you lost that or abandoned it or need to relearn it. You've got to take the jump off the high dive, and it will teach you how you can have faith and how you can trust in yourself. And that creates the sense of a natural authority, of being able to ask and answer your own questions and not have to project expectations onto someone else or a need. And so for a lot right now, this is that moment. Are you going to listen to yourself? Mars is in a disseminating trine to Saturn and Pisces. And so this really emphasizes like what your soul is desiring to do. Mars, soul, Scorpio, ruled by Pluto and Capricorn. How can you take responsibility for yourself? It's through this inner door of listening. And the disseminating trine to Saturn is really about, this is the catalyst that can help you restructure, you know? I'm trying to see if there's anything else I want to talk about. Yes, there's one other thing. For those of you who love whenever I talk about the planetary nodes, this is very interesting to note. During this eclipse, both eclipses, Venus will be the ruler. And during both eclipses, Venus will be conjunct her own planetary north node. But specific to this Libra solar eclipse, the south node of Venus is going to be at 14 degrees Scorpio. This is the degree of where the last lunar eclipse in Scorpio happened at. So culminating and 6 months later, we are wanting to start a new cycle by implementing what we learned at that last eclipse, or what we've been learning through this birthing process of 6 months, and now applying it in a new way for the next 6 months. Whereas that last eclipse, the north node was in Taurus, now we have the south node in Libra. And this really emphasizes whatever you've been learning about yourself that is transforming Uranus and Taurus, especially during what ignited during that last lunar eclipse in Scorpio, can be coming up right now. And if you have been on the path to healing dynamics that have been coming up and being excavated during this time, Mars in Scorpio says, on a soul level, I'm desiring to fix this through self-forgiveness and dissolving these old structures. That's the trine to Saturn in Pisces. Venus sextile this Mars and opposing Saturn is, and Venus conjunct her north node, is I am going to take the necessary steps to heal. And I'm going to throw off the old structures, Saturn, of my conditioning that perpetuated where I felt imbalanced, not heard, where I denied myself, where I was maybe controlling or using conditioned tactics within my relationships. The south node is ruled, the lunar south node in Libra, this eclipse in Libra is ruled by this Venus and Virgo conjunct her own north node. What do I have to do? What can I take from my wisdom I've been gaining for the last 6 months? And now utilize it in a new way within my relationships as a way to strengthen and fortify them and to be in an egalitarian type of relationship. So also, anyone who has Pluto and Scorpio at 14 degrees, I know I do, this is probably why I'm so, or around that by a degree or two, so 88, 89, 90, you'll have it, some of us will have it close to there. A lot can be coming up for us. This to me also speaks to Pluto and Scorpio generation, especially with this degree, how a lot of us are called to do this soul work and to be soul workers for others to help create balance and harmony within these societal structures, because we've experienced a lot of loss, betrayal, and abandonment in the past. This can also, on personal levels, be reigniting the feeling of being betrayed or lost or abandoned, power dynamics that are wanting to surface where new information is collected, seeing as Mercury and Venus are in mutual reception. A lot of ahas can be happening for people right now who've been working on their inner emotional and psychological maturation by getting to know themselves and transform their inner relationship. This is like go time. How are you now going to enter into the world, into your relationships with all of this new knowledge about yourself, around your values and your needs? So, my friends, this is my spiel for this week. and this was a long video. And I want all of us to be gentle with ourselves and to also do our part in the world, even if that's on a very personal level. It's an overcast day and it's getting dark in here, but this is an eclipse. We're in the eclipse season. This is a transformative time. Let's use this wisely. Let's consciously work with this energy. And I hope this information I've given can help some of you to be able to utilize this on a more conscious level. And I will talk to you all next week.